Well, good morning. Happy Thursday. It is Thursday, the 18th of September, and we are well into the end of the summer and beginning to go into winter. One of these days, today, tomorrow, or Saturday or Sunday, we're going to get fall or one day of fall, and then it'll be cold. It's hot, 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 hot. One day of fall, cold, 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 cold. Although, for people who are not cold in the wintertime, fall lasts for the whole winter, pretty much. Yeah. So anyway, today is the 18th of September. Today's 18th of September. And we're not going to meet tomorrow, Saturday, Sunday. I think we will meet next week. It is school break, but we're not going anywhere. If we take off, I have to be gone for a pastor's conference. Not, when is this? So there's 3 weeks of break. And then there's the pastor's conference. Basically, the bottom line is that it's probably good to meet next week, and then I'll tell you what the schedule will be throughout the rest of the school break and the pastor's conference. We have a birthday on the 19th. So tomorrow is Brogan Lavoie. Aaron Cooper is Sunday. Dan Miller is Sunday. Art Delsing is Sunday. So we have 3 on Sunday. Is that Sunday the 21st? Yeah. So yeah, Aaron, Dan, and Art, happy birthday, all of you. Brogan, happy birthday to you. What a great day it is. A lot of clouds in the sky, and we got a little bit of rain yesterday at about 5 o'clock. It wasn't much, and I went to do the Bible study at church, and it had just rained there. And we have some people that live north of Old Spanish Trail on Pistol Hill, and they got doused. They got probably an inch of rain in an hour. So, I don't know how much they got, but looking at it, it looked like they were being doused. Let's see. What else can I say? That is it, I think. Oh, one other thing. So I started setting up on Google, which is what the normal web browser that I access Facebook on, and it wasn't working. So I restarted Facebook. I restarted all this stuff, and it wasn't working. So I moved over to Microsoft Edge, and now it's all working. So we had this problem once before, if you'll remember, and I have no idea why, but for some reason, every once in a while, Google Chrome just stops working for Facebook. But and I think I can't even exit out of Chrome and get into it because it's got some sort of cookie in there or something like that. But when I get into Microsoft Edge, it works just fine. So I don't know. But now I know that what's going on, and that's why you get ready 5 minutes before, because it gives you time to regroup. Okay, actually it's more than it's 25 minutes before, but I turn the timer on 5 minutes before, because then I make sure that all the things are working. Anyway, so we are in, let's go ahead and, is there anything else? No, I think that's it. We are in Leviticus chapter 25, and this is talking about the year of Jubilee. We started this a little bit yesterday. And basically, the year of Jubilee happens every 50 years. And every 50 years, the land reverts back to the original owner. This is a matter of property rights. If you had property that you kind of inherited as a family, all right, mom and dad say, okay, this is your plot, and it comes down to the clan or whatever. That property could be used, the use of that property could be used to grow crops. So if you sell the property to somebody because you need it for debt, then if you sell the property because you need it to pay off a debt, at the end of 50 years, that property goes away. The owner of that property has to sell it back to you. Am I explaining this very well? And what we learned yesterday is that the value of the property basically is a function of how many more crops you can grow on that property. So the closer you get to the year of Jubilee, the lesser value that property has, because in a year, you're going to have to, give the property back again to the person who originally owned the property. It's kind of an interesting thing, but in actuality, it's only a problem if you have debt, if you sold the property for debt. And why would you sell the property for debt? Because you get into debt. So the thing you should never do is get into debt. If you always remain above board financially, if you receive X amount of dollars and you spend X amount of dollars, then you'll never go into debt. That's less than the money you have coming in, then you'll never go into debt. And if a person says, I need to go into debt for just a little bit for whatever reason, there's a wiggle room in there probably, but to bet the farm on a big purchase and then that purchase doesn't pan out, that's when people go into debt. And the amount of debt people are willing to go into is function of how much risk they're willing to take. So if you're an entrepreneurial type of person, you can, take big risks, but then you can go into big debt. And this is where, previously I had an engineering company and I went into debt to kind of start the engineering company, and it took a while to pay off that debt. I mean, you do have, and it's possible that it may not have ever been paid off, right? And so then you have to, sell other assets or whatever. I mean, it is, how do I say this? It's the world we live in. The best way to live your life is to never go into debt. Okay. And we know that's the best way, because then this never happened. The Day of Atonement isn't necessary. But people will do that, or people are taken into court because of people taking advantage of them, or in today's world, most people go into debt because of a large medical expense that they have to pay off. And my understanding is that is probably the number one cause of bankruptcy, is a large medical expense that wasn't covered by some sort of, and that shouldn't happen either. Don't get me started on the cost of medical expenses and drugs and all that, because then we'll really go into a large philosophical discussion. But the bottom line is there are always people that want more and more and more, and they will do whatever it takes to get more and more and more. And there will always be people who are really, they try to live their life, and as long as nothing major happens to them, they'll do just fine. But it's quite possible that at some point they're going to get wiped out financially. It has nothing to do with them, and has everything to do with the systems that are around them. And that's probably why even in the Old Testament they had this year of Jubilee, which apparently they never celebrated. That we have no record of anybody ever celebrating the year of Jubilee, the 7 years of 7. All right. So let's start in verse 13. In this year of Jubilee, everyone is to return to their own property. If you sell land to any of your own people or buy land from them, do not take advantage of each other. You are to buy from your own people on the basis of the number of years since the Jubilee. and they are to sell to you on the basis of the number of years left to harvesting crops. When the years are many, you are to increase the price. When the years are few, you are to decrease the price, because what is really being sold to you is the number of crops. Do not take advantage of each other, but fear your God. I am the Lord your God. So don't take advantage. The value of a piece of property that you own. So if I had, let's say, the house here that I'm living in, and let's say I had crops out in the back, or no, let's say that every 50 years you have to tear down the house and rebuild it, then by law. So this house is 2005. This house is 20 years old. And let's say every 50 years you have to tear down the house. That means there's 30 years left in this. So it means that the value of this house goes down and down and down and down until you get 1 year left, and then it has to be torn down and rebuilt again, which is probably about, that's actually happens quite a bit. The house that Jennifer and I lived in Phoenix is really, really close to the center of Phoenix. And many, many houses in that neighborhood are being torn down and rebuilt as mini mansions because the lots were very, very large, and it's close into town, and there's all the infrastructure there. So you could tear down the one, because our house had no insulation in it whatsoever. So just the cost of electricity today would be, I bet you'd be $500 a month for electricity bill today in the summertime. I guarantee you, maybe $600 a month. They had no insulation in that house. It might be better just to tear it down and rebuild it. Just the money you save in insulation costs. That is, and it's such a great way. The value of it's the land that has that has a little bit of an intrinsic value. So let's give the land back. So if you've got land in the center of town, or close to the center of town, that land has to go back. Or is it only farmland? I guess most people lived on their property if they were farmers. Man, I hadn't thought about that before. Because what happens over time is that the city center becomes extremely valuable, and the suburbs become less valuable, and the farmlands even less valuable than that. That is, I need to get to this book. I wish I had time to research all this and spend more time on it, because it is just the year of Jubilee has always, always fascinated me, because it fights against the natural tendency of every society, that the people who are in first and in early become extremely wealthy. Just think of the people that settled Arizona 150 years ago. They basically homesteaded the land. And so as much as you could fence was as much as you could keep. And so you started with a little bit and then a little bit more. But if you had wealth and you came from the East Coast, you would be able to fence in a very, very large piece of property, and that was all yours. And some of these farms, some of these ranches if you go to Sonoyta and you go to the stakeout, right next door to the stakeout is a hotel. And that hotel is an incredibly beautiful hotel. And it's hard to get a reservation. It's hard to stay there because they don't have a manager on site, which is just weird. Or they didn't 10 years ago. But they have these large, large rooms that are very tastefully decorated in the Southwestern style. And each room is named after one of the major ranches in southern Arizona. So you have the Empire Ranch, and you have the Salcedo Ranch, and you have the Emperita Ranch, and all these family ranches down there. And you realize how, some of these ranches were huge, thousands of acres. And the people would come into Sonoyta, or probably Benson, because that's where the railroad stop was. But basically they would come into town, and once a week, or, they would spend time with each other as a community. And then they would go back and ranch out on the farm. And it's just, I find that life fascinating. I find that life fascinating, that you work really, really, really hard for 5 or 6 days. And then one day you come into town, you get refreshed, you meet people, you do commerce, you worship. I mean, just all, and then you go back out to the ranch again. And I just wonder what it would have been like to live in that community. Um, I don't know how I got off into ranching. Oh, but because the people who came in early, those ranches are worth a fortune today. And the Salcedo Ranch, which still exists, it has lots of land and acreage. The Emperita Ranch would be worth a lot of money, but Pima County bought it. I mean, it's just, there's all sorts of ways that if you are in early, like if you buy land in downtown or where the city center is, that land is going to blossom. Land always goes up in value, always goes up in value. Land never goes down in value. It may not go up in value very quickly, but as a long-term investment, I mean, 50, 100, 200 years, land always has value. It never goes to zero. There's always something you can do on land, unless it's a wetland. Then you can't do anything on it. Sorry, don't get me started on that. Or if there's Preble's mouse, or if there's the owl. What owl is there? Anyway, it used to be that land always had value. Now land can go to zero easily if you buy the wrong land or if the government changes the value of the land. All right. I'm just off in Never Never Land. I'm Never Never Land, which always has value. So the year of Jubilee is basically a way to reset society. Because if you don't reset society periodically, then society will reset itself. You will get revolution. And every society pretty much that has property values or property rights has a revolution at some point. If you're a nomadic tribe, you don't need a revolution because the nomadic tribe can just simply move around. But it's once you stake down your claim in a piece of land and say, this land has value, and we're going to protect the value of this land, and we're going to build a community coming outside of that land, then you need property rights and laws and ways for people to live together, like the 10 Commandments. And then you have everything you need in society except that if whoever's in charge allows some people through surreptitious means to become more wealthy than other people, then all of a sudden you start to get this division of wealth. I don't mean that wealthy people are evil, because there's many, many, many wealthy people who aren't evil at all. It's just that the wealthier you are, the more you attract wealth. It's just the natural order of things. It doesn't change. It has never changed. So eventually you have people at the top. And if those people at the top aren't taking care of the rest of the people, like, the tycoons of the early 1900s, all the hospitals and the colleges and the orphanages and all the things that were a general benefit to society were built by the wealthy people at the top. And so people appreciated them and let them have whatever they had at the top, because they were spreading that around to build stuff in their community. But that doesn't happen anymore. The people at the top basically know that the government is taking care of everything. So there's really nothing for them to do with their wealth. I mean, look at Bill Gates. He's trying to solve malaria throughout the world. And the problem with it is that the people who want to, I don't know if you can solve malaria in the world, but if you can, it's going to cost you, how much does he have? $50 billion in his foundation, the Bill Gates Foundation. It'll cost $50 billion it won't cost a penny less, that's for sure. I mean, there are people that will scam. I shouldn't say scam. I mean, it's just, life gets very, very complicated. That's all I can say, is that if you are One of the stories that I remember from reading the life story of John Rockefeller, who was at one point the richest person ever, except Solomon, um, Standard Oil. Um, every time he tried to do good with his money, about half the time it turned into evil. Because if you give a foundation or if you give people who have not earned the money or have never managed money a lot of money, um, they don't know how to manage it, and so they do things that they would do when they're poor that they shouldn't do when they're wealthy, and there's a mismanagement. And there were a lot of colleges that were founded by Rockefeller that basically couldn't sustain themselves because without a major kind of endowment from him to kind of maintain. Endowments work. That's the purpose of an endowment is, we're going to put away money and then whatever the proceeds or the profits from that money, that's what you can run your college on. And that works. That's why Yale works. That's why Harvard works, Oxford, all these these colleges work because they've got large endowments. If they weren't for the endowment, they wouldn't work at all. But that's oh man, I'm just way off in a never land. I should delete this whole thing. It's human nature that there are some people that will always take advantage of other people. And when that happens, that causes disparity. And if it happens too much, it causes revolution. And there's no way to change it. There's no way to change it. There's no law you can do to pass it. There's no form of government that you can have that will try it. I mean, I think representative democracy is about the best we have. But even in representative democracy, we will have at some point a revolution. I don't know what that looks like, but we will have something that resets all the things so that the people at the top with all the control of everything get their legs cut out from underneath them and a new form of justice happens or whatever. And I don't know what that looks like. And I don't know if it'll happen in my lifetime, unless it happens over the next 2 or 3 years, because typically the world goes in cycles, good times and bad times, and we're just coming out of the bad times now. But it's getting bad. I mean, there's a lot of mistrust right now, and it could be that an event like the death of Charlie Kirk, if he turns into a major martyr for the younger generation, they are a very powerful voting bloc, and they could do all sorts of things to us older generation people. And we have no idea about, they know about AI and they know about, it's just, I don't think it'll happen in my lifetime that everything would be reset, but I'm not super wealthy. I'd be okay with $0. But, as long as I have a food and clothing and a bed that's somewhat warm, I'm okay. I'm not in that, wealthy class. I'm not in the wealthy class. Let me put it that way. I'm definitely in the middle class. Yeah. Anyway, so man, is it 6:53? Oh man. Okay, so thank you for hanging on with me through probably the most rambling thing I've ever done on this whole thing of Leviticus. It's just that this is what the prophets keep telling the kings to do, to return back to God, to follow these laws, to make sure that the rich don't oppress the poor, because once they do, it causes all sorts of problems. And we know that Israel eventually collapses from within because the kings don't follow these laws. They don't protect the poor. They do favor the rich. It happens, and it has happened over and over and over and over again throughout history. And anyway, so God did put in a place. I would love for a country to actually, like Israel, modern day Israel, I would love for them to follow this law and see if it prevents a revolution over time. But I don't know. That's probably not going to happen. You can tell there's the one thing that Israel does do is that they don't go into debt. So that's a smart thing right there. And probably because of this story. I mean, they know that if anybody goes into debt, it causes all sorts of problems. So let's teach our children to never go into debt. And so they do. And that's a very, very good thing, I think, also. Because this only comes into play if people go into debt. If you don't go into debt, this never has to happen. And that's a good thing. So my advice to anybody ever is to don't go into debt. And if we have to, to buy a house or to buy a car. I mean, there's just some, well, you don't have to buy a car. You could buy a cheap car. But it's very rare to find a cheap house. We should, as a society, provide not free housing, but housing that's worth its value, but it's inexpensive. We should provide that as a society. We don't. We've got all sorts of laws that make housing so dang incredibly expensive that we just can't even create an affordable housing unless we subsidize it. And I don't know if that's a good idea either. All right. So anyway, I'm going to drop it there. We're going to get out of this next time we get together, which is next time. So let's close in prayer. Gracious God, thank you for this day, and thank you for your word. May it dwell richly in us until we meet again. Keep us in your grace. In Jesus' name, amen. All right. I'm going to go over here. And October 6th through 8th, yeah. You got 2 inches of rain, Suzanne? It looks like it was a lot of rain. Don, good morning to you. Nancy, good morning to you. All right, so I pray that you all have a blessed day. Thank you so much for joining me. We'll be back together, same bat time, same bat channel, but on Monday of next week. And until then, God's grace and peace be with you. We'll see you later. Bye.